Welcome back to another edition of the Word with G podcast on SidelineBuzz.com. I'm your host, Greg Larnard, where you sit back and listen, and I'll explain. So today we are going to be talking about not only the best baseball team in New York City, but the best baseball team and the hottest baseball team in all of baseball right now. And yes, believe it or not, we are talking about the New York Mets. It has been since 2006, 2007, and maybe 2008, if you want to count that, since we've been talking about the Mets in any kind of relevancy. Ever since they moved into Citi Field, it's been Citi Morgue. Since 2009, it's been bad. So the New York Mets, on a 9-game winning streak, they increase their record to 11-3. They haven't lost since they lost that series against the Braves, the second series of the year. This is the best start since 1986 and 2006. And if you might remember, 86, they won their last World Championship. In 2006, that was the last time they went to the playoffs. So this bodes well for this New York Mets team. And coming into the season, nobody could have expected this. Everybody talked about getting off to a fast start. So important for this New York Mets team. They're facing a ton of NL East opponents. The schedule came out, and people said, you know what, they've got to get off to a fast start. In the month of April, the only teams that they face that are not NL East opponents are the New York Yankees. That's it. And it's this coming weekend. You know, you go out there and you start the season against the Washington Nationals, the team that is basically given, as Bryce Harper would like to say, given a ring already with the pitching staff that they have. Then you go and face the Braves. You take 2 out of 3 from the Nationals. Then you go into Atlanta. Turner Field, we know over the years, have given the Mets fits. Thank God they're knocking that place down, or they're moving to another place, because Turner Field and Atlanta and the Mets, not a good combination. They lose 2 out of 3 from the Braves, 3-5, 3-5, and then they win the last game 4-3. And then they come home. And what's even more impressive is this 9-game winning streak. Except for the last game in Atlanta, it's all been at home, in front of the Met faithful. This is what the New York Met fan needs to see. Winning baseball back in Flushing, Queens. If you win, they'll come. That should be the mantra for the New York Mets. They've been complaining about fans not coming to the ballpark. Well, all you have to do is win and be relevant. And win at home is most important. They have not been good at home. Citi Field has not been an easy or an easy place for the New York Mets to play. It's been an easy environment for opposing teams to come in and play because the crowds haven't been there. The crowds really haven't been into it. But now you've got Harvey Day back this year. You've got Jacob deGrom pitching well. Bartolo Colon always seems to be an event when he goes out there and pitches and he hits. Jonathan Neese has been pitching well, putting the bat on the ball. You know, the only guy you're really worried about right now is Dylan G, and he pitches tonight against Eric Stoltz and the Atlanta Braves. See if they can keep the ball rolling, get on that 10-game winning streak. So you face the Phillies, who arguably could be the worst team in this division. They're half stuck in the past and half stuck in the future. I wrote about that in my Odubel Herrera Fantasy Fix piece yesterday. You go out there, you beat the Phillies 2-0, 6-5, 6-1, and then in come the Marlins, who people were projecting to be maybe a little bit better than the Mets this year, to finish second in the NL East. And who knows, they may still, but boy, they are off to a tough start, especially after getting swept by the New York Mets at home in not a 3-game series, a 4-game series. You lose 7-5, 4-1, 5-4, and then going away on Harvey Day on Sunday, the Mets win 7-6, and then they take care of business against the Braves at home, 7-1. And it's not like the Mets are doing a whole lot to win these baseball games. The thing that winning baseball teams do is they take advantage of other teams' mistakes and they make them pay for it. Make them pay for giving them extra outs in an inning. That's what a good team does. And now that offense is kind of on the downside, from where it used to be in the steroid era, the offense is down. The Mets aren't hitting a lot of home runs, but what they are doing, like I said, taking advantage of opponents' mistakes, getting runners on base, and manufacturing runs. Another thing good teams do. They don't leave that runner at third with less than 2 outs. They get him in with a sac fly. You don't leave the bases loaded. You get a run or two out of that. So very important to take advantage of that. Manufacturing runs, and you win one-run ball games. That's how you win baseball games. That's how you become successful in Major League Baseball. That's how you put together a good winning team. And something else that's really hampered the Mets ever since spring training, the injuries have been huge. And it's not these minor injuries to, the last guy in your bullpen, or, a guy in AAA or AA, or your fourth or fifth starter. They've had injuries to a guy in Josh Edgin, who was supposed to be their main lefty coming out of the bullpen this year. He's hurt, Tommy John surgery. Zach Wheeler, who's supposed to be your number 2 or 3 guy this year, on the shelf with Tommy John surgery. David Wright, who argued he's not going to be out for too long, but out for about 2 weeks with a hamstring injury. Henry Mejia, who had an elbow strain, and then gets suspended for 80 games for taking PEDs and not eligible to come back and play in the playoffs if the Mets do make the playoffs. And Sandy Alderson's even come out and said he doesn't have a spot on this team when he comes back. He hopes that everybody's pitching well enough that he doesn't have a spot and he'll have to go to AAA. He's not going to help the Mets long term anyways this season because he was selfish and he took steroids. He took a performance-enhancing drug, whether he knows it or not. These athletes, they know exactly what they're putting in their bodies. Everything is to a science, to a T. They do everything the same, and it's basically like a science experiment almost. They know exactly what's going in, how much of it, and exactly what time they have to take and what they're doing. So I don't believe Henry Mejia. Vic Black, he was close to getting back. He was going to do a minor league rehab assignment this week, and it's kind of gotten pushed back because his shoulder is just weak. So he's going on for an MRI on that. Bobby Parnell working his way back from Tommy John surgery. Travis d'Arnaud just on Sunday with a broken pinky. He'll be out at least 3 weeks. Probably a little bit more, to be honest. Probably a month or so. And that was a big loss because Travis finally coming into his own. He looked like he was healthy. He was actually hitting well. He was throwing guys out, which has, always been a knock on Travis. That he hadn't, had a good arm and that his catching abilities behind the plate weren't that good. And then finally, Jerry Blevins, who's been a godsend. They trade Matt Dendecker, who just didn't have any place on this team or with this organization anymore. He was kind of getting pushed out. Kirk Neuenhuis was out of options, so you've got to hold on to him. And you really didn't want to send Matt Dendecker back down. He's been injured a couple of times. He really just hasn't progressed the way the Mets wanted him to. So they trade him to Washington, get that lefty specialist in Jerry Blevins, who is proven he can do it. And at the beginning of the season, he's been phenomenal so far. Lefty batters, or batters in general, against him were 0 for 15 to start the season. He goes out on Sunday, gets hit by a line drive by D. Gordon right in the left forearm, breaks his forearm. Out at least 6 weeks. Okay. Another big blow. But you have depth. Sandy Alderson went out there and he signed Alex Torres, who, as we know, has had trouble throwing strikes and being effective so far early in the season, although lately in the last couple of games, he's pitched a lot better. Pitched well last night. You got Sean Gilmartin from the left side, Rule 5 pick from Minnesota. He's got to step up. And the farm system has depth. That's one thing that's huge. Especially with Travis d'Arnaud going down. You've got somebody in the minors who potentially very Major League ready right now in Kevin Plawecki. And he proved it last night. Couple hits. As I'm sitting here, I'm watching the highlights right now. He's got a couple hits. They were comparing MLB Network comparing Addison Russell and Kevin Plawecki's debut. Couple of hits, couple of runs. Family in the stands. Great to see. Great to see for the New York Mets that they have that depth. And catcher has been such a problem for the Mets over the last couple of years when you've had John Buck and Josh Tolley and guys like that just nothing to really get excited about. But Sandy, there may actually be a method to his madness. All these last couple of years that are being down and growing the farm system, getting that good young talent in, looks like it's finally paying off. He's acquired assets. He's traded old contracts away. He's done the little things that have been good. And you can go out there and you can say, hey, he just never really signed anybody or he really hasn't traded for anybody. But you really don't want him to trade for anybody because then you would have had to give away these young, talented assets. And you don't want to do that if you don't have to do that. They come in handy. You get those guys major league ready in a little bit extra time in the minor leagues, so you make sure they're really ready when they come up to the majors. That's really important. And it's showing with Plawecki. It's showing with guys like Jeurys Familia, who's been awesome at the end of that bullpen as the closer. Juan Lagares, he's coming into his own at center field. So you've got guys there that have been in the minor league system. Daniel Murphy, he was in the Mets minor league system for a while. I know he's been up here for a while, but still, these guys, David Wright, all going through the Mets minor league system and coming up. It's great to see they've got a lot of homegrown talent. Really, the only couple of guys that you brought in were Kadire, Granderson, and everybody else was basically homegrown. dArnaud, Plawecki, Duda, who's been great. Haven't even mentioned Duda yet. He could possibly be the Mets' best offensive player right now, to be honest. Daniel Murphy at second, Flores at short, Wright at third, and Lagares in center. And then you look at the pitching staff, you've got Harvey, DeGrom, Neese, G. Those guys were all brought up along by the Mets in the farm system. So it's great to see actually that these young guys are putting it together. And this team is putting it together. And I think this is going to be a little bit of a movement around Major League Baseball now. And you already see some teams doing it. You look at the Cubs infield right now. The oldest guy is Anthony Rizzo. And he's 25 years old. They just brought up Addison Russell playing second base. You got Starlin Castro, who's also 25 at short. And then you've got the young Chris Bryant at third at 23. It's unbelievable. So I think there's a little bit of a movement starting to happen here where in the minor league system, you're gonna load up on minor league talent, and instead of going out and trading that minor league talent for maybe some established players and giving up a lot of his assets, you might hang on to those younger assets a while and let them develop and then reap the benefits from there. You look at a team, and I'm not saying that the Washington Nationals aren't going to do some damage and aren't going to really compete this year, because I really do think they will, and I think they'll right the ship, and they will probably definitely overtake the Mets for first place, but it's nice to see. It's nice to be king, as Steve Summers would say. It's good to be king right now at 11-3 at a 9-game winning streak. But you look at a team, and maybe the Yankees are a better example of this, but I'll use the Washington Nationals, and I'll talk about the Yankees too a little bit. But the Washington Nationals, you look at them, and they did a lot of trading and acquiring assets and giving up assets and acquiring talent that's ready right now. And they haven't really been able to withstand a lot of their injury problems. I know they just got Denard Span back, and Rendon is out, and they've kind of had stopgap guys with Yunel Escobar. I know he hit the game-winning home run last night, at third base, and you've got Diane Ugla at second base, or Danny Espinosa, whomever. Those guys don't really strike fear in you anymore. There was a time when they used to, but not anymore. But you look at the Mets lineup and you go 1 through 8. You look at where's the outs in that lineup. Maybe Wilmer Flores. Maybe. and Juan Lagares earlier in the year. I understand that Daniel Murphy's not hitting great right now. Curtis Granderson hasn't even really hit his stride, but you look at that lineup and there's not really any clear outs. And like I said, Curtis Granderson really hasn't even hit his stride yet, which is unbelievable. And he's leading off, and he's kind of, I think, taking a different approach. And he has been hitting the ball hard. And I'm sure he's working really hard with Kevin Long, who he was hitting coached by with the Yankees system. He had 4 RBIs last night, finally getting his first RBIs of the season, which was great to see. And then you look at Juan Lagares, and coming into the season and during spring, he was supposed to be, and he was slated to be, the Mets' leadoff hitter. And then come opening day, he's hitting 6th, and Curtis Granderson's leading off. That threw me for a loop. And I know, playing baseball, growing up playing baseball, still playing baseball now, if I'm locked into one spot in the lineup for a while, and then they flip the script on me, and I'm hitting a completely different spot, that's going to mess with me. And I'm sure, confidence is big for Lee Harrison. And he had grown, he'd hit really well in spring. And I think his confidence was growing at the plate. Being the leadoff hitter, he figured that they had faith in him. And then coming into the year, you get dropped down to 6th. I understand 6th not that bad. But when you're basically tabbed to be the leadoff hitter all spring, and then you come in and you're hitting 6th, that changes your whole mindset. And Lagares is a guy who really feeds off confidence and getting things going, and he's a great fielder. But I think he lost some of that confidence in the lineup shakeup coming opening day, because I don't think he had any idea it was coming. He gets in there opening day, he's in the lineup, but he's batting 6th. There's a big difference between batting leadoff and batting 6th in your mindset. I know your mindset should always be the same, hit the ball hard. But as a leadoff man, you've got to concentrate on having a good at-bat, seeing a lot of pitches, getting on base. And granted, Granderson has done that. I think he leads the league in walks or close to it. Right now, he's done a good job. There's a little bit of me that would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive, but his strikeouts have been cut down dramatically from last year. So I really don't want him hitting 4th. I would honestly like Granderson to hit 6th. I think that would be a good spot for him. But then again, you can't have Murphy, and Granderson back to back. It's nice to have the lefty righty back and forth. But yeah, Lagares, now they've got him hitting 2nd because Wright's out and dArnaud was hitting there. I like Lagares hitting 2nd. That's fine. You can leave Murphy hitting 5th. And then you look at Duda, and like I said, he's quite possibly the best offensive player on the New York Mets right now. He could possibly be the best hitter and the best offensive threat in the New York Mets, and he really hasn't even got rolling. Power-wise, he has, I think, 1 home run. But he's hitting the ball hard, and he's doing a good job having good at-bats, not striking out a whole lot. Love having him in the 3-hole. And I was one of the proponents of, what's going on with this lineup? Why is Duda hitting 3rd? I think he should be hitting 4th, and Wright should be hitting 3rd. But clearly having Duda hitting 3rd has been good. He's done a good job. And like I said, quite possibly the best offensive threat that the New York Mets have. And he's hitting lefties so far this year, which is great to see. That's one of the downsides that people said coming into the season, that, he's going to have to sit. Kadire is going to have to play first, or maybe Jr. is going to have to play first because he can't hit lefties. He's actually hit lefties so far this year. And I know it's early. It's, 14 games in, and he's got to do it over 160 games. But it's definitely a good start. And you look at Kadire, and this was a guy, if you know me or you've listened to my stuff before and talking about the Mets, I hated this signing. I really did not like the Michael Kadire signing. I thought it was a safe signing. I thought it wasn't going to it didn't do a whole lot for me. It wasn't exciting. And as a Met fan, you're looking for that, that splashy, exciting move, because growing up, that's what I've been used to. the signing of Mike Piazza, the trading of Mike Piazza, whatever it was, and the signing of Pedro Martinez and Carlos Beltran and Delgado, the trade for Delgado and Tom Glavine and these flashy, exciting moves. And then you sign Michael Kadire, and it's like, wow, well, this was supposed to be our year. And you look at Michael Kadire, and he really doesn't do anything great. He's not a great power hitter. He hits for average really well. He doesn't get a whole lot of RBIs, doesn't score a lot of runs, he's a good solid player. He was a safe signing. But the one thing that I miscalculated, that I really didn't realize, because to be honest, I didn't watch a whole lot of Michael Kadire. I knew about him. I know he's a good player, and I know he doesn't do anything great. But the one thing that I miscalculated and that I've realized since watching him in the New York Met uniform is he's a great leader. And he plays the game hard, and he plays the game the right way. He's a great guy in the clubhouse, good influence on the younger guys. He keeps David Wright happy. That's important when you got to get him on the field, though, because they're good buddies. He does some magic trick. He keeps the clubhouse loose, and I think he did a good job of that in spring training. He kept the clubhouse loose, and that was important. Because you can't have these guys coming into a year where this is supposed to be a big year for the New York Mets, and everybody's all tense. And Terry Collins might be on the hot seat if we don't, get off to a good start. Now, let me get off subject just for 1 second and talk a little bit about Terry Collins. You've got to give this guy some credit. He's had to deal with mediocre teams and a mediocre roster for the last 5 years. 6 years, however long he's been here. And not once has he lost the locker room. Guys, I heard somebody say this yesterday. The guys don't get fired because of their strategy. To bunt or not to bunt, to steal, to hit and run or not to hit and run. All that. You can debate it one way or the other. The manager, two things the manager has to be good at. Holding the locker room and keeping the locker room together, and managing a bullpen and a pitching staff, along with obviously the pitching coach. Those two things are very, very important. I believe are very important for a manager's success or failure. There'll be those rare cases where, there's just somebody better who you're going to go out and get, like a Madden in Chicago. But Terry Collins has not lost this locker room at all. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And keeping this team together and keeping them motivated. Terry Collins, by no stretch of the imagination, a Hall of Fame great manager. But this guy's been in baseball for 45 years? He's got a ton of experience and he knows how to deal with these major league guys. And that's important. That's really important when you're handling. You've got to deal with egos. You've got to deal with guys of different backgrounds and kind of know how to bring them all together. And I think he's done a really good job with that. So I just had to take a second and give him credit. And let's get back to the lineup here. Daniel Murphy, like I said, he really hasn't hit his stride yet. He didn't have a spring training to speak of because he was hurt. And he came back like right on opening day. He maybe should have started the year on the disabled list. Maybe not. But I think it probably would have helped him, hit his stride a little bit quicker. But he's getting there. He hit an RBI hit on Sunday. And then you look at a guy like Travis d'Arnaud, and like I mentioned before talking about him, I just feel really bad because he was really coming into his own this year. He was confident dating back to last year when he went down to AAA because he was not playing well. Went down to AAA and he figured it out. I give him a lot of credit because he could have went down there and said, man, I'm better than this. Why am I down here? Screw these guys. But no, he went down there. He realized that he had work to do. He did it. He got better. He figured it out. And I give Travis d'Arnaud a lot of credit. And I fully expect him when he comes back to be the starting catcher again. But the fact that we can, as a New York Met fan, we can dip down into the minor league system and bring up a potentially ready, really young catcher is great. It is a great thing for this organization. And again, I'm seeing the Kevin Plawecki highlights again. And it's just great to see a good story for the New York Mets. And it just speaks to their, what Sandy Alderson's done and drafting players and developing them. And our farm system used to be terrible. Terrible. But it's gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. And it's promoted winning throughout the organization because these minor league guys, they come up through the system, and in AA Binghamton and AAA Las Vegas, the last couple of years, these teams have been really good. They've won. They've gotten deep into the playoffs. I think one of them won a championship one year. So these players come up here and they're used to winning. They know the Mets have been down for the last couple of years, but that's in the past. This is the here and now, and they're ready to win. And it shows. The winning culture, the winning attitude, it starts in the minor leagues and it works its way up to the major league club. And that's truly what the New York Mets have done here in 2015 and the years leading up. They've established that winning culture in the minor leagues and brought it to the major league club, and it finally seems like it's coming to fruition. And you look at Wilmer Flores, another guy who was in the Mets minor league system. And to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of Wilmer Flores. If you've listened to me at all talk about it, not a huge fan of Wilmer Flores. I'm just hoping that he can hit. He still looks like he's getting comfortable at shortstop. He's played a little bit better. There was one game in Atlanta where he made a couple of mistakes, and if he doesn't make those mistakes, we could be 12-2. But he made a couple of mistakes, threw a couple of balls away, and that happens. He's a young player still, and I just hope that he can hit. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's the long-term answer at shortstop. I think he's kind of a stopgap guy, just getting Matt Reynolds ready, hopefully. I like Matt Reynolds a lot. I like what I saw out of him in spring training. And I hope that, he continues to develop and he can be the answer at shortstop for a long term. We don't have to go out and get a guy. Maybe we have a guy in our minor league system. Maybe we don't have to give up any of these young pitchers to get a shortstop. Maybe we've got the shortstop of the future right in AAA right now, in Matt Reynolds. And we'll have to see. As far as the starting pitching goes, it has been phenomenal. Pitchers have been very effective. They're throwing strikes. That's one of the big things. So undervalued. You can talk about this guy has great stuff and this guy throws 110 miles an hour, yada, yada, yada. But if you can't control your stuff and you walk a lot of guys, I don't care how hard you throw or how good your stuff is. These guys are major league hitters for a reason. If you get guys on base and you put yourself into a corner, you're going to get hit. Because you're going to have to come into them. If you can't command your stuff and you're getting behind, you're constantly getting behind, you're going to have to come over with a fastball. And these major league hitters, they'll be ready for it. And I think that's a little bit of Zach Wheeler's downfall, is that he has great stuff, but he could never control it. That's why I'm not a huge fan of Zach Wheeler. Great stuff. But if he doesn't learn how to control his stuff and stop walking guys, he's never going to be a great pitcher. He's going to be a very mediocre pitcher. He's going to be one of those guys who has great stuff and throw the ball really hard. He'll strike 13 guys out a couple of times during a year. But he'll walk a bunch of guys, and that is what ultimately is going to lead to his downfall. But back to who's here now, there's been a ton of quality starts. 1 through 4 have been awesome. Matt Harvey, I know he was sick on Monday or Sunday. He gave up 4 runs on Sunday. Not his best outing, but he was sick. He battled through it. Jacob deGrom, as of right now, knock on wood, doesn't seem like he's going to have any kind of sophomore slump. He's been pitching great. Jonathan Neese has come through. Bartolo Colon has been an event every time he steps on the rubber and in the batter's box. It's been fun to see. And I just think that keeps the guys loose, that it's just fun to see Bartolo Colon go out there and do it at 41 years young. And the whole pitching staff takes on a new demeanor when Matt Harvey gets back. Just his attitude, his swagger, just everything about him. he kind of has that demeanor of, I'd rather kill you than lose. Basically. Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm getting at. He has that killer instinct. What, like Kobe Bryant has, or Michael Jordan. He doesn't accept anything that's not great and that's not a win. And that's great to see in a player. And the only guy who really has not been pitching well is Dylan G. He's 0-1, goes tonight in a high ERA, see if he can get himself right. My hope was that Dylan G came into this year, pitched, pretty good. 2 or 3, a mid to high 3 ERA, and got a couple wins. And, maybe we'd be able to trade him for, minor league asset or a guy out of the bullpen or something like that. And then we could bring one of these young kids up, whether it be Steven Matz or Noah Syndergaard. But it doesn't seem like Dylan G is going to do that just yet. We'll see what happens with Dylan G. I don't know if they'll let him go or they'll put him in the bullpen or what's going to happen, because these guys in the minors, whether it be Syndergaard or Matz or even Montero, they're pushing at Dylan G right now. They're pushing at his roster spot or his spot in the rotation. They're pushing it. And they even sent Montero down to stretch him out because he's coming back up in about a week, and maybe less than that. About a week. I think he's coming back up on the 28th. Is going to start a game. Mets are already playing this out. They're going to start him in a game. So that'll be exciting for Rafael Montero. Actually, was at his very first career start in the major leagues against the New York Yankees last year, where he went up against Tanaka and he ran into a buzzsaw basically. Lost the game 4-0. Didn't pitch terrible, but it was his first start in the major leagues. And the bullpen has been phenomenal. It's been really a pleasant surprise, especially with Jerry Blevins. Pitched really well against lefties, but he's out. Alex Torres, Sean Gilmartin going to have to step up. Carlos Torres has been a constant in the bullpen the last couple of years, but a bullpen that's had a lot of turnover. Like we mentioned, Edgin, Black, Parnell, guys that you expected to be there, not there. Eric Goodell in the bullpen now. Henry Mejia gone. You've got guys like Buddy Carlisle stepping up. And the guy that I absolutely love out of this bullpen, and I'm sure you do too, Jeurys Familia. This guy has, talk about phenomenal stuff. This guy has excellent stuff. Great tight slider that gets a lot of ugly looking swings and misses, and I saw a couple of them from Giancarlo Stanton on Sunday when I went and saw the Mets play. He's just been outstanding, and to be honest with you, I think even when Parnell comes back and Mejia comes back, I really don't think Familia is going to give up this closing spot. I don't think he's going to give up the closing role. He's just that good, and if he can be consistent, he can field his position, and he can continue to throw strikes and be good in one-run ball games and continue to get better. He throws the ball almost 100 miles an hour. And like we said, if he can get his command down, because as we know, command is king. You can have the best stuff in the world, but if you can't command it, doesn't mean diddly. So if he can command his stuff, and he looks like he has, he's got 6 saves so far this year. Again, knocking on wood, 6 for 6. And he's already pitched a lot because this team has been in a lot of close games already. And that's a good thing, and he's closed them all out. Didn't have to use him last night in a 7-1 victory, so that was good. He's got 2 days off in a row, so he should be ready and rested to go if need be tonight. And I'm just overall really excited, and you should be too as a Met fan. Just really excited for this New York Mets team. This team this fan base has been thirsting for a team to be good for so many years now. And I think that's all the Mets fans want. They just want a team that's competitive, and it's going to be there in September. Just give us some meaningful games in September. Get us to just get in. Just give us a chance to get into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. We'll take our chances. Look at the Kansas City Royals from last year. And in my mind, and I plan on doing an article or maybe even a podcast about this, comparing this team to the Royals team. I think there's a lot of similarities. And they just barely made it into the wild card last year, losing big time to the A's. They end up storming back, beat the A's, take care of the Tigers. And they end up going to the World Series, and they're 1 or 2 hits away from winning that Game 7. If it weren't for Madison Bumgarner being so freaking good, they might come back and win that series. And they pushed the Giants to a 7th game, and that's great for Kansas City. But I want to see my New York Mets do something like that. And I think this season they have an opportunity to. Amongst all the injuries, if they can hold the ship down until guys get healthy, and these couple of guys are only going to be out for a little while, whether it be dArnaud or Blevins or Wright. And another guy that I really, speaking of Wright, that I forgot to mention, Eric Campbell. How about this guy? Coming in, stepping in for David Wright, and injured David Wright, doing a great job. Not, again, a guy who doesn't do anything great, just a really solid just a baseball player. Just a really solid baseball player. He fields third base pretty well. He seems like he's gotten a lot better. He said he took a lot of ground balls and he spent a lot of time at third base. And maybe that was the plan, because you never know what was going to happen with David Wright. He couldn't really stay healthy, fully healthy last year. So then maybe the Mets brass was thinking, hey, spend some time over there. We might need you. And I heard Eric Campbell talking a little bit yesterday and talking about how he wasn't mad that the Mets sent him down in the beginning of the year. He started the year in AAA, and he said, you know what? Yeah, I was a little upset, but at the same time, it really allowed me to get off to a good start, because he knew if he was coming and playing in the major leagues, he was going to be sitting on the bench. So he ended up going down to AAA, going to Las Vegas, and he started all the time, got 4 or 5 at-bats every night. And that really helps a player, hit his stride, and that's why I think he was able to step in and do such a good job for David Wright, that, he had already been playing a lot. So right when he came up, he got the opportunity to play, and he's kind of just run with it. And he doesn't do anything great. He's a decent hitter. He doesn't have a lot of power, but he's a baseball player. He's a winning baseball player. He does the little things right to help you win a ball game, and all these guys have done it. Like I said, Daniel Murphy's another guy who comes to mind who hasn't really hit his stride, but he's done little things. When you've got a guy on second base and no outs, he hits that ball to the right side to get him over to third base, allowing Eric Campbell or Travis d'Arnaud or whoever's hitting 6th or 7th to get him in. The Mets. This is what makes winning baseball teams, and this is what the Mets have been doing. These little things to help win games, the little things that you have to do. And baseball is a lot of paying attention to detail. It's, as we know, it's a huge mental game, and you've got to do those little things to win baseball games, and that's what the New York Mets have done. It's great to see. I'm very excited, and I look forward to getting 10 in a row, hopefully tonight. Again, we're going to knock on wood. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch it. I've got a coach tonight, but I'm excited. I'll be keeping track on my phone for sure, and hopefully the Mets can keep it going against the Atlanta Braves tonight. So this has been the Word with G podcast on SidelineBuzz.com. I'm your host, Greg Larner. We're talking New York Mets baseball, going for 10 in a row tonight against the Atlanta Braves. This is the Word with G podcast, where you sit back and listen, and I explain. We'll catch you next time.